reaching you live from KAFTAN television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Now we'll go straight to analyzing the stories that we read out to you earlier. We have Uthman Tochukwu, who is a legal practitioner. Help us to analyze on the stories that we read out to you. It's great to have you on the show again.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you, Victoria.
All right, I was asking you the other day, how come your name, Uthman, rather, Isa than Tochukwu?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're going to take us through that part before we begin. So
no, it's just very simple. Thank you very much for having me, by the way. I'm a Muslim, to start with. That's where you have the name Uthman, Isa, as an Islamic name.
Okay.
Tochukwu is my tribal name. I'm Igbo.
Oh.
I'm from Enugu State.
Okay.
Yeah, from Igbo, the South local government area.
Okay.
So that's just the basics.
Okay.
I like the fact that we are embracing our culture, and not saying that because you are Igbo you should not be Muslim.
Good, you understand that, yes.
All right, so we go straight to our papers for this morning. Our phone lines are open now. You can call in to make your contributions or ask your questions. First, we'll start with Daily Trust. In fact, all the newspapers have the same story. It says doubt over Buhari's fresh $800 million loan request, and the writers to that story says Nigeria fast exceeding borrowing limit coming from the budget office. But take a look at this one. It says new request is a parting gift coming from CDD, that's the Center for Democracy and Development. Total debt hits 77 trillion naira. No justification to incur debt for incoming government. I'm sure that's coming from the current administration. Use savings from subsidy removal to fund palliatives. Let's begin on that note. What are your response?
I think to start with, I'm not a fan of borrowing, right, to fund budget. That's not to say that borrowing is outside governance, because even if you look at the global borrowing index, America is #1. In the global borrowing index, they borrow, but the difference between American system of borrowing and ours is that America borrows within themselves from their rich individuals, and of course you can see how they use that money to do something in terms of infrastructural development and other things, which would later generate funds to pay back. But our own is the opposite. We borrow from outside, and at the end of the day we use that money to cash out and feed ourselves without using it to do the real project. And this is where we have a problem. If you are borrowing to develop the country, use it for the project that is meant for. There's no issue about that. But if you are after borrowing and then you still subject the people to abject poverty, and then without having any source to pay back, it becomes a problem. And I think this is where I have my own personal reservation with our own system of borrowing. And to borrow from when you have less than 6 to 7 months to sign out, it doesn't make sense to me.
Maybe that's why CDD calls it a parting gift.
It will be best described as that. Honestly, I don't support that.
I was coming to that. It's actually less than 18 days to hand over, and Buhari wrote in it later, says you may wish to note that the federal government of Nigeria, under the conditional cash transfer window of the program, will transfer the sum of 5,000 naira per month to 10.2 million poor and low income households for a period of 6 months, with a multiplier effect on about 60 million individuals. So the question is, what will 5,000 do for the poor Nigeria?
It's not even necessary. Let him just leave it. Let him not transfer. Let him go. Let the incoming administration should come in and consider, right, and consider whether or not it is important and imperative to continue with that project.
But is it actually possible for the incoming government to just say no, like just you have
government?
That's what I'm saying. Once you assume an administration, it is left, you have the discretion to continue with what you met in the office or to discard them, subject to the overriding convenience of the activities you met in the office. If Tinubu enters tomorrow now and finds out that the 5,000 naira this guy is trying to transfer is not necessary, he'll just discard it and probably introduce something that is more better. Is it not?
But then the loan is there.
Yes.
No, the question is that whether he wants to continue with it or not, he is going to pay the loan, because the government is a continuum. Do you understand? So if he chooses convenience to continue with the project, fine. If he chooses otherwise, he's still going to pay for it, because he is the government now. He's not coming there as Tinubu, he's coming there as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So he had to incur every other thing that the past administration.
Okay, but let me ask you, sorry I have to butt in there, just like you have in Kano, where the governor-elect came and said that if you continue picking loans, I will not pay. Is it possible for the president-elect to have this kind of discussion?
Yeah, no, the truth is that you cannot actually say that if he continues to pick loan, he will not pay. What he should say is that he should press not to allow him to pick loan, so long as he remains the governor, right? The governor-elect has not come into office. So it's the same thing applies to Buhari. So long as Buhari remains the president, he has not handed over power. He still have that discretion to pick loan. But whether the National Assembly is going to approve it is a different issue. But if National Assembly eventually approves it, Tinubu does not have that right to say he cannot pay back. You are our president, you will pay.
But do you see the National Assembly approving the request for the...
Well, I'm not a member of the National Assembly, but by implication and looking at the social realities facing Nigeria at the moment, I do not think it's the proper thing for the National Assembly to do. So bearing in mind, how far we have incurred in terms of, our borrowing. I do not think that they will be fair to Nigerians to borrow more. And I think before they even do that, they should subject that particular request to a public hearing so that the citizens can go and have a stake. I mean, one way or the other, directly or indirectly, we're going to.
But they will tell you that it's the citizens that they are making that request for.
That's what I'm saying. The fact that you are making the request on behalf of us, we should have a stake to decide whether or not we need it. Call for public hearing. Let us come and debate it. And make you find more reason why you should be able to accept it or not.
All right, great. Let's leave that story and go to another one. This one actually concerns us personally. NBC lacks power to impose fines on broadcast stations. That's coming from court. A lot of people are happy at this story. I saw someone that says NGE hails court for stopping NBC from fining broadcast stations, and this is looking like an arbitrary thing, like you become the judge and the jury. So do you think this is a step in the right direction though for us?
Well, the court has taken a position, and of course, I'm a lawyer. I have taken a vow to protect the rule of law. And at all times, whenever a court has taken a decision, we are bound by that order. So if the court says NBC does not have the right to impose fines on any broadcasting industry, it remains so until set aside on appeal. They can go to appeal.
So that means the NBC can decide to go appeal that case.
Yeah.
That's not the final arbiter. The court is not, the High Court is not the final arbiter. They can go to appeal. And if appeal find merit on what they brought before it, so be it. We'll comply. But as it is now, with that order of court, it remains the position of the law.
All right then. Okay, so we take this story. That's okay. Let me just leave that one. We'll take that later. 22 billion naira fraud. EFCC arrest ex-power minister Saleh Maman. Let's get your reactions to that story.
It is very sad. While I read through that headlines yesterday, regardless of what it is on the face of it, the reality is that this type of headline should not be popping up from an administration that campaigned rigorously on corruption, right?
And fighting corruption.
It is very sad. And
but I recall that he was sacked by the president, though.
I didn't think it was actually sacking. It wasn't sacked, because if it was sacked, it's supposed to be proved. There should be reason behind the sack. I think it was a resignation or so. But there are so many things behind the camera that we may not have to share here since we don't have the facts. But as it is, even as having been arrested by the EFCC, he's still a suspect until proven otherwise by the court, right? So, being that as it may, there is a limit to which we can discuss this issue. He is a suspect. He has not been found guilty. So, we're expecting that the EFCC will do the proper thing to charge him before the court and then let the trial continue. Let's see how it goes. But on the face of the report, 22 billion is too much. Look at what is happening tonight. Do you mean that we have 22 billion that somebody can steal and would still want to borrow? There are so many questions around this whole thing. And like they say, in every iota of grapevines, there's an iota of truth, actually. But on this type of report, you cannot actually say this is the truth until the authorities have done their due diligence, and then we can rely on.
I think that it's impossible for us to have 22 billion naira that can be stolen.
I don't think it is impossible. Nigeria has money. It's a question
Even though at some point, you recall
is it not in this same
few months
country?
ago.
Is it not in this same country that a particular matter is in court now? The former AGF, Accountant General of Federation. How much are we talking about? 109 billion. That's money. That's money. We have money. It's a question.
But then you recall that the Senate president once said that Nigeria is broke.
Well, it's possible to say that those things are political comments now. It's not all of those things you pay attention to.
But how do we stop this fraud among politicians? Because whether we like it or not, although they are going to be probed later when they get out of office, but then the money has been taken and it has been stolen. And perhaps when it's time for repatriation of those money, bring it back to the public space, we don't get to see the money still.
You see, the only thing it takes is the political will for the executive to act, you know, and be serious about their functions. If I were the incoming president, right, the president-elect, I would cause an external audit in all these, you know, stolen funds over time. And I will have a kind of, you know, synergy between the government and the private sector to follow up this money. Because you find out that whenever you synergize to carry out some government functions, if you synergize with the private sector, you will find out that you get more results. Because the private sector are not interested in anybody whose horse is God. They just want to do their job and get away. But once you are within the system as a government, let me tell you something you have to understand about Nigerian system. Everybody wants the system to work, but nobody is ready to do the right thing. Because the efficiency of the system is killing some certain persons who are the, you know, the cabals in the authority. So once we make the system work, for them, it's a fight against their industry. They have built that industry and it's flourishing very well. So the moment you bring in somebody that is going to fight and crave for the efficiency of that system, you want to kill their industry and they are going to fight back.
Just like insecurity.
Exactly, and they are the majority in the institution. So it takes a very serious and radical political will to get this thing done. And to be very sorry, our, you know, judicial process also has not helped matters. You cannot, if you find out that when EFCC filed this process now, it may take another 4 years before they can determine and dispense with the matter up to the Supreme Court. So these are issues that need a very serious, you know, constitutional and judicial reform so that there can be a speedy trial when some of these issues comes up.
All right, let's quickly take this call before go ahead. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, beautiful morning to you, Annabel and Barista. Good morning.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you very much. You are also SMG from Kano.
SMG from Kano. Oh, you're in Kano today. Great to have you.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
All right, go ahead.
Annabel, let me quickly respond. Let me appreciate Barista and also appreciate KAFTAN TV for giving us this ample opportunity. Thank you very much. We really appreciate.
You're welcome.
Like Barista made mention in terms of charging somebody to court, it was our law who said, yeah, you are not guilty until you are proven guilty. Yeah, it's correct. That is why sometimes I ask myself, is it not law that complicated easy matters so that since it is so much complex in a situation whereby things are supposed to be settled? I don't know. Look at the issue of these powers of license that we are talking about. Remember in 2018 there is an agreement between Siemens and the federal government, which they call Presidential Power Project Initiative. Almost about $21 billion US. Where is the project? What's wrong with the Modular Hydro project? Understand? Apart from 1999, what happened with the $16 billion US of the issue of power? And we are talking of productivity. You cannot be productive when you don't have power.
Exactly.
And we know that we have all the potential. So my question is, are we getting the exact democratic concept right? That is number one question. Secondly, the issue of these $800 million borrowing. I suggest the government should allow the process to run under the new government. Why I say so? If they will have National Population Commission census to stay aside until the new government comes, why don't they do the same? So that the new government will know that, yes, I have to do this. We are not talking about social amenities. Look at out of school children. Nobody is talking about it. Look at the banditry. Look at the Almajiri issue. You understand my point? Look at the drug abuse issue. So you ask yourself, are we for it? Like I always said, we don't have any other country than Nigeria. And all I know is building a nation is a collective responsibility. So we can't just keep on going the way things are going, honestly speaking, and thinking that we'll get a different result. No. Please, let us focus on our nation and do the reality. Like I said, in 1970, Dubai is not what it is today. But when they have this deal, when they know that they need to develop their environment, they did what they did. Look at Dubai today. It has become a global village. Everybody, anywhere, whatever you're doing, you have to go to Dubai. In business, you have to go to Dubai. So in a business field, I don't see where they borrow money to share. They borrowed money to invest. Thank you very much. I remain SND from Kano. Barrister, I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much for that contribution. Very well said.
Well, the caller made some point. Well, I'm not going to go through that point, but I have a question as regards when one is being probed in this country is then questioned in a way or seen as a form of witch hunting, because many other persons, especially those in power, are seen working freely. Do we begin to question? Should we question the reasons or the motive behind people who are being probed?
I don't. The question is not too clear.
Okay.
The difference between having proved somebody and having put somebody on trial and to a particular period the trial was forestalled for the reason best known to the institutions, right? Now, I don't think. Maybe when you mention a particular case that has been proven, right, and it was not followed up, I may be able to address this question. Otherwise, it will be on speculation, and I don't think it is correct for us to engage on speculation. I'm aware that the issue relating to former EFCC boss, acting former EFCC boss, I'm talking about Magu, was one time, indicted, and along the line, the case could not continue. The same thing happens to former SGF. Was he former SGF?
Yes.
Yes, Secretary to the Government of Federation.
Yes.
Yeah, Babachi Lawal.
Yes.
The case was somehow, was he charged to court or something was about to be charged to court, and all of a sudden we could not hear about it. So these are issues that surrounds political cases, right? And once authorities have shown interest or indicated interest, on a particular matter, there is nothing you can do about it. Even though it is unfortunate that it is not helping to fight the corruption in the system. But that's one thing on the other side. On another side, which is also recognized by law, when you are prosecuting a particular criminal case and the Attorney General wage into the matter and exercise his power of nollie as granted by the Constitution, right? You cannot continue with such matter. If you are prosecuting, a suspect today in court and the Attorney General comes into the matter and say, I'm interested in this case, I don't want you to continue, I want you to discontinue this matter, you will just stop there and then. And that is the power that the Attorney General has under the Constitution, which they call the power of nollie, the power to continue or discontinue any criminal matter at any time before the judgment. So we don't know whether when such matter had started, the AG waged in and say, I want to exercise my power of nollie. Do you now understand? So somehow I want to agree with him that to a very large extent our law is the problem, because some certain things you want to do, if you look at it from the law, you cannot move forward because the law has tied you.
Coming from you saying that our law is a problem, really?
Why not?
So you agree?
We have criticized the Constitution, and one of the advocates of saying that the 1999 Constitution is long overdue. It cannot serve the interests of 200 million Nigerians. And this has been open for public debate, even among lawyers. So
are you amongst the complete overhaul or review of the Constitution?
I'm among the complete overhaul. What happens to the confab conference that was held by Goodluck Jonathan? We wasted money, and there was beautiful recommendations in that confab. Why did the government throw it away? They should go and revive that conference and see where they can address issues. There was very beautiful, recommendations.
But even the said president that you're talking about there was no, let me use the word that you always use, willpower to even move that.
That's what I'm telling you.
So it's not like it's only the present administration.
No, but what happened was that after the confab, when the new administration came in, which is President Muhammad Buhari, they presented the report to the president as early as immediately he entered into office. That since I was unable to carry, that's why we say that government is a continuum. Even if I bring in some certain initiative, if I was unable to carry it out, you will not capitalize on my weakness now to continue. You have to work on my weakness, And that's the reason we are saying, because our own system of taking over from another administration has become a kind of, personal thing. When you take over, instead of you to continue on the course that the administration had left behind, you want to forestall them and then begin your own initiative. You are wasting money.
What if it does not meet to what you think as an individual, the state or the polity needs at that time?
No, the issue is that you are not actually the one to decide this thing. You see, when you want to work as a government, the best way to ensure that you have an efficient policy is to go and collate public opinions. I do NGO stuff. I assist some certain NGOs to reach out to some communities. When you want to assist those communities, you are a stranger to them. You don't know their problem. It is they that will tell you their problems and probably suggest a solution on how you should tackle their problem for them. Right. So as a government, when you come, if you really want to solve the problem, go and find out from Nigerians, an average Nigerian on the street, what is your problem? How do you think we can address this?
Well, Nigerian government does not do that.
That's the problem.
All right, so we have quite a number of stories to pick, but let's take the current election tribunal before we take the one on the National Assembly leadership. Okay, before we go, let's just take this call. He's been calling all a bit long. Hello, good morning. Good morning. Are you there? Oh wow. I think I need to let you go. Please just call us back. I think your network is messy around there. All right, so let's talk about the election tribunal. And here on Vanguard newspaper says presidential poll, court adjourns Obi's petition against Tinubu till May 17th. And then we also talk about the appeal to have the session being aired televised live, so we can have a live broadcast. And then you have some people arguing that some African countries, they've already started it, and then other people saying that you don't have it in other advanced countries, and all of that. With all of that discrepancies here and there, let's get your thoughts in that regard. And the election tribunal, how far so far?
Let me first of all give you a preamble of what happens in an election tribunal. Okay, please let's take this call before you go ahead. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Great to hear from you.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Chris Obonna. I'm calling from Abuja.
All right, Chris Obonna from Abuja. Go ahead. Let's hear you.
Yeah, please, I want to comment on this very discussion going on right now.
Go ahead.
Okay, good. I want to first of all to thank this the young man that is there in the studio, the barrister Uthman Tochukwu. He's a very good analyst.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's speaking the mind of Nigerians entirely.
Thank you, sir.
So, yeah, go ahead.
And I want to go on again and say that what Buhari is waiting for, all these 8 years he has been in office, remaining 18 days for him to go. What is he looking for $800 million to do it again? Nigeria doesn't need anything against him. Let him go. We don't need him. We're even tired of this many days. Let him leave. Let other governments come in. Let us see what they can do. This government is a total sham. This government has impoverished many Nigerians, millions of Nigerians. There's nothing that he's telling Nigeria we can agree with him. He said let's go on and do anything to approve that $800 million. This current Assembly, that means they don't know what they're doing.
All right.
That means they are totally rubbish Senate. So
thank you so much.
Please, Nigeria should be very careful. Let this government let us tell them the terms and reference, because they don't even know what is going on in Nigeria.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chris Obonna.
Who will pay this? Let him go, please.
Thank you so much, Chris Obonna from Abuja, for your contribution. Please go ahead.
Yes, I was making a comment over the election petition tribunal. It's important for us to understand how election tribunals work. In law, we say that election matters or election tribunal matters are sui generis, in the sense that they are on the class of their own. For example, Section 285 of the 1999 Constitution, specifically Section 285 sub 6 of the 1999 Constitution, provides for the determination of election petition tribunal 180 days from the date of the filing of the election petition up to the appeals. What this means is that if you file today, your 180 days start counting from tomorrow morning.
Okay.
And if you do not determine that matter within 180 days, there is no time for leave of court to for an extension of time for you to continue.
So that's
once 180 days lapse, it's closed there.
Oh, okay.
So what it means is that if you put these things together, right, with the adjournment and all of that, if they don't expeditiously determine the matter within the window of 180 days up to the Supreme Court.
Oh, really?
Yes, up to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Then it means that the election petition is as good as it never came before the court.
Okay.
And then you still have all these adjournments.
Yes.
That's the
exactly
point.
my question.
And then again, let me finish. You have 21 days after the announcement of the election result to file your petition. And the other party, the petitioner has 21 days to file. The other respondent has 21 days to respond. After you have responded, then the election petition will start. Note that 21 days, once you have filed, 180 days has started counting. So with all this adjournment, 180 days is counting. So Nigerians need to know how this thing works. And that's why we say as lawyers, election petition matter is sui generis. It's not like every other matter, like if you're out of time, you just go to court and pay fine and seek an order of court for an extension of time. The court will oblige you because you have paid, of course, you have paid the necessary fine for defaulting. The court will now give you an extension of time. But in election matter, you don't have time.
Oh, wow.
And the court will not give you the leave for an extension of time.
So the adjournment, does it help or deter?
No, the adjournment, of course, is not healthy. But again, you cannot tell the court.
But it's not healthy not for all.
No, it's not healthy for both parties. Actually.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it's not healthy for both parties because if you look at it, and again, why you cannot question the adjournment is that the court cannot run beyond their limit. The court has a record, and the court also has a mechanism within which they operate, even within the determination of the election petition. So, if they look at their record and it is too pressing, we should not forget that it is still human beings that are manning this court. They are not from a different planet. So if they look at their record and it doesn't suit their convenience to continue at the time, I definitely know that they are going to determine the matter within 180 days.
Oh,
they
really?
are going to do that.
You think so?
Yes.
Okay, now
No, but you've actually not talked
about live broadcast.
Yes,
Yeah.
live
Yeah,
broadcast.
about live broadcast. I learned yesterday that the counsel to petitioner IEP2B made an application for the court to allow it to be live broadcast so that every other Nigerians can have access to watch. It's a novel development, and I also learned that the court has granted that leave to allow it to go live broadcast. There's nothing wrong about it. It happened in Kenya. Kenya had their election, presidential election petition on live broadcast, and everyone could watch what is. I think it will help to to remove this doubt
and
that
tension.
the judiciary, is not being fair to some parties and all of that. So it will encourage transparency in the determination of the election petition, and it's commendable.
Great.
okay, but then I was going to ask how far can it go, especially with it but you said it's commendable televising of the whole petition. So, but do you see it coming into light, especially in Nigeria?
No, why not? If a court has given an order that it should be televised, it's just like you carry your camera to go to Court of Appeal now that you want to observe the election petition. But there should be a kind of accreditation of the media so that there wouldn't be that kind of rowdy atmosphere in the courtroom when the proceedings is going on. Why not? If they can control that, I don't think anything is wrong with that.
Okay, so I hear you say that the election petition is sub generis, which is
Sui generis,
sui
yes.
generis rather, which is a case on its own. Now you have a lot of people saying that even though we know that we operate in a democratic dispensation, but then let's have cases like this, election matters, just take it to have a particular tribunal not just take it to the regular court, so that we can allow the process of governance to continue. It doesn't impede the process of governance. Do you agree, since you say that it is a case on its own? So let there be a particular court that sorts it out.
That has been taken care of, and that's why if you look at those who are maintaining such segment of argument, you would understand that it's coming from people who are not lawyers. They are taking care of that. Election petition matters are not determined by the regular court that you know. And that's why the law provides, Electoral Act in section 130 provides that election petition tribunal should be set up 30 days before election. And the registry of that particular tribunal should also be live and ready to work 7 days before election. What it means is that election petition is not a regular court. Okay. And the word sui generis is associated with it because it's not a regular court. The justices sitting before that election does not sit in another matter when this election petition is going on. They are exclusively
for election matters.
Until that election matter is determined.
Okay, talking about
that has been taken care of.
Talking about election matters, should there be like a form of restrictions to parties who file in petitions? Because we see cases of parties who have withdrawn their petitions, and so why in the first place should you file a petition when you know at the long run you're going to withdraw it?
No, it's your matter now. That's why it is called law. If somebody, if Annabel slap you now, God forbid, and you take Annabel to court, that Annabel slap you, when they finish calling the matter in court and you people return back to this studio, and Annabel now say to you, Victoria, please, I beg you, when we go back to court tomorrow, just withdraw that matter, we can settle.
But it's perceived as time wasting, because if you knew you were going to settle in the first place, why take it to court?
I should be putting the question back to you now. If you knew that Annabel was going to apologize to you and you're going to forgive her, why did you take Annabel to court? So the point is it's not about the court now. It's about the individual who has gone to court, right? To determine whether or not his right has been infringed upon, or whether there is an illegitimate taking away of his mandate. So if you knew that you're not going to pursue it up to the very end, why did you file it? The court can fine you. If the court did not find merit, if they feel that what you brought before it is frivolous, the court can fine you and say, pay certain amount of money to court for bringing this nonsense suit before us.
All right, before we leave this election matters, now on behalf of people who feel aggrieved, disgruntled since after the elections, I'm going to ask you personally, in this 180 days of this election tribunal as it's going on, some people want to hear from lawyers, from people like you. What is their faith for those who believe that their mandate was stolen and they're trying to retrieve their mandate? And then those that were taken to court and those that have been in all, what is their faith? I'm going to
say this as an average Nigerian out there, because if I speak from the point of law, I will be speaking from the point of privilege because I'm a lawyer. But to tell you the fact as a Nigerian, I will tell you that they have those who were aggrieved about the outcome of the election have taken the best of steps by first of all seeking the window of opportunities that the law has provided, for such situation, going to court for the courts to determine whether or not their right or their mandate was not stolen. That's one part. Another part is for Nigerians to understand that parties are bound by their pleadings. The court cannot determine a matter outside what both the petitioner and the respondent had brought before it. We may have our biases, right? That we want it to go this way. But the truth is that the court would be compelled to go within the bounds of what the petitioners have submitted. So whichever way it goes, whether it tilts our biases or not, we must have to accept the outcome of the election petition tribunal. We should not take laws into our hands, and we should not push a certain narrative for the court to take a position that will favor us. If the court goes the contrary, based on what was brought before it, let us abide by that.
All right, so for those that just got angry with the fact that they say, okay, I'm not happy with what happened, and then you just say go to court. So you're telling them that the fact that you decided to go to court, that's the best decision. No,
I must actually take exceptions to the nonchalant way of how they put it. Go to court. That is nonchalance. But to be very fair to those people, whenever you are aggrieved that something wrong was done to you, and the only remedy or refuge to address that, wrongdoing against you was to seek redress in court. I think the right thing to do is just to approach the court or other authorities, that have been conferred with such right to take action.
And not telling them go to court.
And you just tell them to seek
Okay,
redress.
I know you want to move on, but I want to ask this question. Yesterday, we saw some group of individuals approaching the appeal courts, and one of their major reason for going to that place was in solidarity with the judges, and they claimed that the judges were being intimidated, or they would want to stop any form of intimidation by people, politicians or parties against judges. Do you think the judges are at the edge of any form of intimidation at this time?
Well, the truth is that if you look at some of the narrative that are being pushed, especially on the social media, you would be tempted to agree that some judges are being intimidated. There was a time they pushed a certain narrative that a sitting CJN was once cited in London trying to disguise on a wheelchair, in a meeting with the president-elect. So some of these narratives, if you pay attention to it, it could cause some, these people are human beings. It could cause some lack of confidence in some of these judges, and that would automatically, ring into their psyche to begin to develop some certain kind of fear, to even excuse themselves, in being part of that panel. But I think if you look at also those people who had gone to protest, there are so many things going behind the camera. It could be that some section of politicians just sponsor them to go and carry out some of that protest. But for whatever it is, on the face of it, the right to protest is safely guaranteed under the Constitution. Section 39 and 40 is very clear. You can protest against the ill or whatever you think has not, satisfied your requirement in terms of governance. You can protest. The Constitution guarantees that.
Okay, but one more. What does the law say about people who petitioners and then they are absent in courts?
No, you don't necessarily have to be present. So long as it doesn't have to deal with criminal matters, the petitioner may or may not have to be present in court for the matter to go on. So long as your lawyer is in court, the matter can go on. That's no legal effect.
All right, our time is fast spent, but if you can help us in just 2 minutes, if possible. Vanguard newspaper, all the newspapers talks about the 10th national leadership. Senators elect, reps elect move for open contest, and there you have betrayed us. Aggrieved members tells Adamu and NWC, quite a lengthy one. And then on Nigeria Tribune says 10th National Assembly, Akeredolu adds more fuel to raging zoning fire. In all of this, what are your thoughts? What are your responses?
Honestly, I've keyed my interest for over 2 weeks now, trying to understand the power tussle in the national in the incoming 10th National Assembly. It's interesting to note one thing, that for whatever it is, every time year in year out the National Assembly election comes up, Nigerians should know that they are on the class of their own. Even at the party level, they may agree with you, but on the day of election they are going to disappoint you. You know why? Because it is not the majority of your party senators or representatives that determines that election. They could just have a friction. Look at what happened during the 8th National Assembly during Saraki and Ekurimadu's era.
Yes.
It produced 2 fractions of parties as Senate President and Deputy Senate President. And I fear if they don't take care of this within their party level, that's what is going to happen. If NWC has taken a position and other party members are aggrieved with such position, it's going to cause a problem, because those aggrieved members will fall back on the opposition in the National Assembly to take their succor, so that when they come at the plenary for the election, they will say, okay, it's democracy after all. Majority carry the vote. And these politicians, like I always say, what comes to their mind first is their interest, not the interest of Nigerians. So for whatever it is, they are fighting for their own. Whoever emerges as the Senate President or Deputy Senate President, regardless of the party, it does not concern Nigerians as far as they are concerned. I'm telling you.
Oh, wow.
It's about them. So What is going to happen now if they do not agree with the National Working Committee on the candidate that the party is presenting? What will happen is that they will have a fractions. And the other agreed fractions will go and fall back to the opposition. And you know it's an interesting time for the 10th National Assembly because it's no longer, you know,
one party.
Exactly. The game
very
has
colorful.
changed.
It's very colorful.
Very colorful. I like the word colorful. The game has changed. So you just have to go and do your campaign. Everybody should go and do their homework
individually, and that's how it's supposed to be.
Thank you so much, Isa Uthman Tochukwu. It's always a pleasure having these discussions with you.
Thank you very much.
All right, viewers, that's where we end this segment of the show. We have been talking to Isa Uthman Tochukwu. He is a barrister.